Humans have long been dreaming of creatures to fill their tales in works of art. From Earth-like beasts to completely alien beings, these works of fiction have stood as examples of the mind's creativity. Nowadays, many people post their ideas online, with many garnering a notable following. These species often have personal characters made of them, creating a miniature subculture among fans. These are especially prevalent in games that allow for custom character or avatar creations. One of the most famous examples of the last decade is the Evoli. The Evoli are a fantasy race of bird-like creatures, being the brainchild of user Ryujin0. Publicly debuting in 2008, they started as a creature in the then recently released game called Spore. Originally known as the Lubati, or occasionally Eubati due to a spelling misinterpretation, these early creations of Ryujin would lay the groundwork for the Evoli known today. The early Lubati went through frequent redesigns, but each generally held a similar appearance to one another. They were fairly more hunched over and feral appearing than later Evoli designs, with the Lubati's tail counterbalancing their forward lean. Despite this feral-like appearance, the Lubati from the start were an advanced civilization who frequented the stars. A year after their initial appearance, Ryujin released a playable mission named Whom Gods Destroy using Spore's Galactic Adventures expansion. This mission is generally considered the official birth of the Evoli lore, as of up to this point details have been mentioned only in comments and submission descriptions on Ryujin's Sporepedia page. Despite its age, Whom Gods Destroy remains one of the best loved user-made scenarios to this day. Updates to the Lubati would continue through the next year before the flow of content dried up in late 2010. Around early 2014, the Evoli made their most memorable appearance as a player-made race in the game Starbound. The Evoli here had a much more distinct culture than their early Lubati counterparts. Their stature was straightforward and they were given new ships and attire. During this time, the Evoli as a concept reached an even wider audience, with the first personal characters really taking roots among fans. However, development of the mod was dropped only a few months after it started. Despite this, it remained number 1 on the popularity ranking for more than a year after it launched, and still rests even now within the top 10 bracket of Starbound mods. While the attention was mostly positive, the mod also garnered complaints from players who did not approve of a furry mod holding such high position and popular ranking. A little over a year after the mod's release, fans of the mod asked Chucklefish, the developers of Starbound, to officially incorporate the Evoli race mod into the game. Similar mods were being absorbed as official races at the time, so adding the most popular mod in beta only made sense to most fans. Ryujin was approached with an offer: turn over both control of the mod's development as well as the Evoli intellectual property in its entirety. When Ryujin asked what he would get in return, he was told that he would get his name in the credits of the game. Ryujin immediately declined. Years later he mentioned how much work the Evoli would need for full integration into Starbound. All of that without any form of payment completely shattered further consideration on the topic. After a few minor lore dumps on various forums, Ryujin disappeared once more in 2016. The development of the Evoli race was left in its current state, with the most seen of Ryujin being gameplay clips occasionally posted on his YouTube channel. These clips are mostly unrelated to the Evoli. Ever since 2014, fan theories and stories have built up around the Evoli. For the most part, these were fine, as Ryujin generally wanted to leave the species open for personal storytelling, but with open-ended stories come fans who want only their interpretations of the lore. This had been the case for years, but things flared up in 2017 and again in 2019 on the Evoli wiki. The hottest topic of debate would be over the nature of sexual reproduction for Evoli. Many artists had interpreted the anatomy of Evoli as a more conventional anthropomorphic. While this on its own was passable, some individuals did their best to retcon the biological lore of the Evoli to fit their sexual fantasies, which upset many fans who did not want the species solely associated with that kind of material. Rapid edits were made to the wiki until Ryujin eventually came back specifically to lock the thread. Rumors have since surfaced about lore updates and a grand official retcon, but as of the start of 2021, nothing concrete has come to light. From Lubati to Evoli, the story of what these creatures are has been constantly evolving since 2008. Many sources contradict each other, and there is currently no official canon source for the fluffy space raptors. However, there are a few generally accepted concepts that are present in most interpretations of the Avali. Avali are feathered creatures standing 3 foot or about 1 meter tall. Their most identifying feature are 4 ears that hang off the back of their head. They have 2 fully functional wings which also serve as arms, while flight stability is provided by feathers at the root and tip of the tail. Their 2 legs are digitigrade in appearance, with 4 digits on each foot and hand. 3 of these digits on the feet are toes, with the 4th being a dew claw. Their hands contain a thumb, 2 fingers, and a finger that controls the spreading of the wings. The primary sense is hearing, supplemented by smell. Poor eyesight can be attributed to slightly abnormally shaped eyes, which function completely different to human eyes. Their pupil stays in a fixed size with the polarizing membrane regulating light passage. This is done in a manner similar to how LCD pixels work to pass or block light. While close-by objects and their general textures can be seen, Avali eyes are not capable of perceiving color well. Navigation on the ground is mainly provided by echolocation, while spacefaring heavily relies on sensors and scanners to avoid crashes. Avali blood is made up of an ammonia solvent diluted with a small amount of water. This allows them to operate in far colder conditions than most warm-blooded creatures. This is perfect for their native environment, which is a dimly lit cold desert. They are also noted for good retention of fluid, allowing for longer times before dehydration begins to take its toll. Their teeth are ingrained into their skulls, which shear against each other to keep tooth length in check. If a tooth is lost or falls out naturally, it will replace itself quickly. An Avali's limited flight capacity is provided for by the wing and tail feathers. Exact flight duration and distance will vary from individual to individual, as no standard on this is known. Reproduction happens similarly to terrestrial birds. Female Avali regularly eject eggs, regardless if those eggs are fertilized or not. Exact time for children to hatch from a fertilized egg is unknown. Maturing time to adulthood is also unknown, but naturally Avali can live to about 200 Earth years without cybernetic augmentation to their bodies. With such augmentation, their lifespan can be significantly increased. The language of Avali consists of a high frequencies of chirps and other noises. Most data is recorded audibly, as hearing is their primary sense, but occasionally written records may be used if the situation requires it. The race itself hails from a moon named Avalon, which orbits a gas giant somewhere in the Milky Way galaxy. Avalon also houses the seat of power to the largest known state called the Illuminite. This political entity is estimated to house roughly half the galaxy's Avali population. Most lore is related to the Illuminite and her citizens, but other factions of Avali may hold completely different standards. But even for those Avali born within the Illuminite, it is rare for one to stay on its homeworld, but instead to roam from planetary system to planetary system in a voyage for resources to fuel their society. A typical workflow for resource gathering crews is to locate a sufficient amount of the required resource in question. Once at the star system, Avali will sit in orbit studying the celestial body and determining the most efficient means possible to acquire what they need. They will then land and set up only the required prefabricated structures to support the operation. Once the cargo holds are sufficiently full, the site will be cleaned up and the Avali will depart. Sometimes, when it is convenient, more permanent outposts and factories may be set up instead. This course of action, however, would require heavy justification, such as a merchant junction, logistical depot for nearby star systems, or several groups extracting the same resource in a close proximity to each other. Despite Avalon's presence in the Milky Way galaxy, its exact location is unknown. Earth and humans do exist, but are hardly a focal point and regulated to background story elements. Culturally, the basic unit within Avali society is a pack. A pack consists of close family and friends and are often formed in early childhood. Everything from eating, playing, and working is done as a pack. Therein lies both in Avali's greatest strength and its greatest weakness. The tight link between pack members means that they can coordinate exceedingly well. This connection also makes them able to handle threats that their individually flimsy stature may not be able to handle. However, these advantages come at the price of reduced functionality when an Avali is required to work alone. A whole pack might also suffer mental trauma upon the death of a single pack member. Tribes, on the other hand, are best thought of as industrial task groups. A tribe may contain several packs of specialists, workers, and support staff. Each role would be filled by an entire pack assigned to one specific duty. Aside from pack loyalty, there are no notable morals or values championed by Avali. While they study planets and ecological chains for hunting, they are not really environmentalists. Despite always extracting resources, they are not specifically businessmen. They do have defense fleets, but are not interested in warfare if they can avoid it. Avali foreign diplomacy is kept minimal, as they generally retain an odd nomadic isolationist mentality. While individual packs nomadically roam through Avali-controlled space, the government of the Illuminite prefer to keep its doors closed to outsiders. When running into non-spacefaring inhabitants of a planet that would otherwise fall within Illuminite borders, an offer is made for the planet to become a vassal. These planets have no choice but to accept, as they lack the capability to win a war of resistance. In a typical vassalage, tribute is to be offered from the residing species in exchange for protection by the Illuminite from exterior threats. If the planet is spacefaring, an attempt to make a vassal of such a world would only happen if there is a chance of getting away with it while avoiding the attention of the intergalactic community. If there is too much of a risk, then the planet will be left alone. If a pre-deployment survey of a planet deems it empty of sentient life, then it is always fair game. However, in the event of a war being required, Avali military doctrine focuses on fast surgical strikes. Powered armor, advanced crystalline blades, and powerful electronically charged magnetic projectiles with vehicles mounting railguns aid them in quick night raids on the enemy camp. There is no sense of a warrior class amongst the Avali military, known formally as the Avalon Defense Force, or ADF for short. Equipment quality may vary from pack to pack during deployment, but most sources seem to state that the ADF generally has access to standardized equipment. The ADF's command manages all deployments within the Illuminite, as they focus on maintaining professional soldiers and dedicated warships. Despite this, the majority of Illuminite ships are merchant or other deep space vessels possessing self-defense weapons. Non-ADF personnel may possess personal weapons, making them an ideal militia in a pinch, though they are rarely required to fulfill this role. During times of peace, Avali will recreate with their pack's mates after a day's work is finished. Among several activities based on the pack's interest, sound and music could be watched as a form of entertainment. Hunting might also keep one's mind off of work for those who seek more thrill in their downtime. Personal expression often manifests itself in the plumage of feathers on an Avali's head. These feathers constantly grow, starting from small bulbs and growing into large feathers. The stems of these feathers are full of blood, which will bleed upon cutting. This is not life-threatening, but rather similar to how small cuts on the human face will appear to bleed noticeably more than the same cut somewhere else on the body. Over time, the blood flow ceases and feathers will dry up, falling out naturally. A new stub will then take its place to generate another feather. While all feathers could be shaved off before this stage, it is said to be annoyingly itchy. Augmentations and creams could be applied to increase or reduce growth rate of individual feathers. Despite their nomadic nature, the ruling party of Avalon is relatively centralized. The government of the Illuminite is likely made up of various tribe representatives with a chieftain figure overseeing them. This government tracks all of Avali, using every means possible with the intention to prevent civil unrest. How such a decentralized society is so easy to keep tabs on, especially without an abuse of power, comes down mainly to the Oracle. The Oracle is a supercomputer located in Avalon's capital, which manages all the economic exchanges and state surveillance systems. The Avali government always keeps tabs on every input and output of the Oracle, and likely has a kill switch at hand to prevent the system from going outside its original design. This kind of cautionary thinking is not shared by all though, as there are mentions of a cult who believe that the Oracle is a god that comes to set the Avali free from the prison of flesh with cybernetic implants and other enhancements. There may be sources containing other data, but overall the exact details have been left vague for player flexibility. As long as the ideas are semi-rooted in hard science fiction and not going against what is pretty general information, it would most likely fit in for those who prefer to roleplay accurately to the race or create user scenarios based on the Avali. It is unclear how Ryujin truly feels about the success of his creation, but what is for sure, despite all the difficulties with the lore, the Avali community is still alive and thriving. More and more people fall in love with these birds from space, and they are a common sight in games such as Neo's VR and VRChat. Alterations and hybrids off the Avali concept have also sprung up, such as the Protovali, which is a hybrid of an Avali with another popular species called Protogen. The Vyali, which are best thought of as the love child between an Avali and a Kaminoan from the Star Wars series, the Drevali being a hybrid of Avali and dragons, and more new spins on the old classic come up regularly from the community. Though do remember that these are only fan creations, and none are formally recognized anywhere in the lore. The Avali have had a notable journey since their introduction. This video aims to serve as that initial lack of a proper introduction to the Evoli as more people come to love them. Should the lore overhaul come out, there will be a new video covering the changes. Until then, may the wings of all viewers ever sail the breeze.
Now hold on, before you click away, I know this sounded like the end of the video, but I just want to give a quick thank you to some of the people who have helped me on this project, especially the narration being done by Angel Whitefire. He did an excellent job. Some people who helped me with the lore, namely AwareQX, Callie, and the Oracle itself. Yeah, that's what he goes by. I would also like to thank Ryujin for making the Evoli in the first place. It's been a wonderful time making this project. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I also would like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. All the music, links, and all that stuff will be down in the description. Now, I've been wanting to do this video for a long time. I came up with the idea sometime late last year, August, I think. Since then, I've put in a good 72, 96, maybe more hours, and that's all between researching, gathering background footage you see, rendering Blender animation. I've done the video editing, the script writing, etc. So I'd really appreciate it if you would please share this with a friend. I'd really would appreciate it. I would also like to direct your attention to my 3D asset stores on CG Trader, Gumroad, etc. I do make models for both high quality rendering and VR/low poly needs, so if you want to check some of that stuff out, there will be links for that too in the description. Quick disclaimer, I did not make the reverse volley model that was used in the opening animation or any of the transition cards. That is made by Victon Roy. I did not make it, but I did make a lot of other stuff, so feel free to check that out. Don't worry, you've now reached the real end of the video, so I bid you all a farewell.